In the last 10 minutes of this man's life, unbeknownst to him, he is deeply captivated by the woman in front of him. Despite this being their first meeting, they find an incredible harmony in their values, and even their coffee drinking habits are strikingly similar. The woman feels an inexplicable affection towards the man, reminding her of her father's words that love is a heartbeat moment in time. As they part ways, they reluctantly express their fondness for each other, yet mysteriously neither leaves their phone number. Perhaps it was just a fleeting encounter, never to meet again. With a heavy heart, Susan looks back, hesitates, and then turns away. The man does the same, and despite several glances back, they perfectly miss each other every time. On his final look back, the man has already crossed the street, leaving only his silhouette behind. Susan laughs at herself and then disappears around the corner, unaware that he too turned back looking for her now absent figure. Unexpectedly, this moment of pause cost the man his life. Strangely, a few days later, Susan's father William brings home a friend who is none other than the man who died. When asked about his name, William hesitantly says his name is Joe. They seem unfamiliar with each other, yet William, a top tycoon, shows utmost respect to him. When Susan returns, she immediately recognizes Joe and asks how he is there, to which her father inquires if she knows him. She recounts their encounter at the coffee shop, but Joe appears confused, answering questions off topic. Susan quickly notices the discrepancy. This man lacks the gentlemanly humor of the one at the coffee shop. He seems bewildered, disregarding manners at the dinner table much like a naive child. William, seeming anxious, ends the dinner early before anyone can understand what's happening. He arranges a luxurious room for Joe, who curiously tests the mattress as if he has never seen such a thing before, finding it amusing. In the quiet of the night, he explores his surroundings, stopping at his reflection in the mirror, examining it with satisfaction. This is his first time in a human form, a sensation he finds indescribable. Indeed, Joe is not human. He is the Grim Reaper, here to take William, whose time is near. However, William's advice to his daughter at a crucial moment makes Joe reconsider.
But love is passion. Obsession. You forget your head and you listen to your heart.
Though Joe has experienced the cycle of life and death, he has never understood love. So he borrows the body of the man from the coffee shop and strikes a secret deal with William. William will show him the joys and sorrows of human life, and in return, Joe will extend William's life. As a newcomer to the mortal world, Joe is like a lost child. Tasting peanut butter for the first time in the kitchen, he finds it delightfully delicious and asks for more. While wandering and enjoying his peanut butter, he accidentally stumbles into a swimming pool. Joe may not understand the nuances of love between men and women, but watching Susan, graceful as a mermaid, he feels a human heart's flutter for the first time. Confronted with this simultaneously familiar and strange man, Susan can't help but question him. Where did the young man from the coffee shop go? Who are you really? She is drawn to the mystery surrounding Joe, yet instinctively avoids his gaze, her rationality as a doctor prevailing over her emotions. However, Joe's curiosity knows no bounds. Intrigued by the idea of healing, he takes it upon himself to visit the hospital where Susan works. Susan feels this is an intrusion, promptly showing him the door. Joe confidently claims he can heal patients, a notion Susan dismisses as mere nuisance. Then an elderly woman in a wheelchair passes by and is visibly shocked at the sight of Joe. It's clear she recognizes him as the Grim Reaper, but instead of fear, she pleads with Joe to take her away quickly, unable to bear her suffering any longer. Joe gently reassures her it's not your time yet, and extends his magically healing hands. In an instant, a miracle occurs. The old woman feels a significant relief from her pain. Witnessing Joe's tender care, Susan's perspective of him shifts. She reveals she's engaged, implying a relationship between them is impossible. Her fiancé Drew, a key aide to her father, seems a perfect match for Susan, bolstering the family's business. Yet Susan feels no excitement for this relationship, her father reminding her love isn't a business transaction and she shouldn't settle. During a family dinner, Drew's jealousy flares upon seeing Susan and Joe laughing together. Afterwards, he confronts Susan, vehemently expressing his disdain for Joe. As Drew's tirade escalates, Susan retorts she enjoys talking to Joe, leading her to reevaluate their relationship. Perhaps they were together out of convenience, not love. Indeed, Drew doesn't love Susan. His motives are purely opportunistic, leading to their breakup. As Susan turns away heartbroken, Joe listens silently, still a mystery to her, including his dealings with her father. William understands his daughter's feelings and the hopelessness of her love for Joe. Bound by his agreement with the Grim Reaper, he can't disclose the truth, only advising her to keep her distance from Joe subtly. Unbeknownst to him, Joe, through his interactions with the family, gradually experiences the warmth of human life. He observes William's calm acceptance of death, embracing the simplest pleasures of life like walking to work and cherishing family dinners, mending his relationship with his eldest daughter, and reminiscing about his late wife. Most importantly, Joe discovers the beauty of love, the thrill of which brings him unparalleled joy. He longs to see Susan, who despite her father's warnings falls deeply for him. One night they openly express their feelings with a deep kiss, Joe's first, immersing him in the moment, momentarily forgetting his true identity. Their bliss is short-lived as William soon discovers their relationship, furiously accusing Joe of overstepping his boundaries.
Well, you're at the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong woman.
I'll be the judge of that.
I'm her father.
With all due respect, Bill, I'm not asking your permission.
You goddamn mouth shut!
Now Joe is like a boy experiencing his first crush, wanting to dive into a love affair without considering the consequences. William, feeling helpless, turns to his daughter, warning her about Joe's dangerous nature and his inevitable departure, which would only hurt her. Susan struggles to reconcile this with the father who always encouraged her to pursue true love. Joe, unfamiliar with the nuances of human emotions, fails to grasp the paternal love hidden in William's words. It's not until he brings flowers to the hospital for Susan, and finding her absent, visits the elderly woman he once met, that his perspective begins to shift. The elderly woman's words profoundly affect him. She desires flowers for her grave and urges Joe to take her away, suggesting he too should return to where he belongs. Even if there are those who wish him to stay, she believes that what's meant to happen will, and one might leave with fond memories if fortunate. These words resonate with Joe, making him realize the selfishness of his desires. He cannot risk harming the ones he loves for his own attachment to the mortal world. Fulfilling the elderly woman's last wish, Joe then informs William that his purpose has been served and he will take him away after his 65th birthday celebration. At the party the following night, Susan, dressed elegantly, meets Joe among the guests. Desperate to know if he will truly leave, she confesses her love for a man whose true identity she's unsure of. Joe responds with his own admission of love and reluctance to leave. Learning that their time together is ending, Susan is filled with sorrow, mistakenly thinking Joe is merely moving for work and suggesting she accompany him. Joe, inspired by this, proposes a bold idea to William, to take Susan with him, believing that true love means staying together forever. William, however, reminds him that love is about trust, responsibility, accepting the consequences of one's choices, and most importantly, not harming the beloved. Torn, Joe contemplates whether Susan loves the witty Joe from the coffee shop or the genuine, endearing Joe she sees now. He decides to follow William's advice and reveal his true identity to Susan, allowing her to choose. But before he can confess, Susan reminisces about their first meeting at the coffee shop. She recalls every word he said, and the sight of him walking away. Joe knows that wasn't truly him, and as he sees Susan's happy smile, he feels a sense of loss. Their final embrace is also their first experience of parting's pain. Then, perhaps sensing something, or maybe Joe revealing his true nature, Susan asks if he is really Joe. Seemingly finding the answer she sought, Joe finally understands William's words about love being passion, obsession, indispensable, and ultimately a selfless act of protection and fulfillment. For Susan's sake and a better future for her, he abandons the idea of taking her with him. He promises her, "I'll always be the Joe you met in the coffee shop." Afterwards, Joe seeks out William to apologize and acknowledge his mistakes. In his final moments, William addresses his loved ones, expressing gratitude for his 65 years of life. Despite the swift passage of time, he feels fulfilled with a brilliant career and a loving family, leaving no regrets behind. He shares tender embraces with his family, shares one last dance with Susan, wiping away her tears, then gracefully approaches the end of his life. Joe, sitting on a bench in the distance, experiences sorrow for the first time, shedding tears of attachment. Unknowingly, he wipes away what humans call tears, symbolized by the spectacular fireworks that seem to mark the end for him and William.
It's hard to let go. That's life.
They exchange a knowing glance and then walk away side by side. When Susan turns and sees their departing figures, she realizes something. By the time she catches up, they've vanished into the darkness. Soon after, the familiar figure of the man from the coffee shop appears on the bridge. Though Joe has left, he returns the body's original owner to the mortal world to continue loving Susan on his behalf. The man, confused about his presence but excited to see Susan again, doesn't dwell on the hows and whys. Susan, still processing her father's departure, suggests that even though they barely know each other, they have time to learn. She hopes he, having met her father, can decide what comes next. Joe's essence, now part of the man, suggests letting things unfold naturally. Some believe the man who returned is still Joe, having relinquished his Grim Reaper identity but retaining his love for Susan. Regardless of whose soul inhabits the body, Susan has gleaned the essence of life from this experience. To love fully, fear not the departure, and cherish the present. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this.